just I'm just figuring out my windows because I don't have a monitor yet. Okay, can you see the hello, we are Snook?
Yes.
Great, amazing. Okay, so thanks everyone for joining. Also, yeah, conscious that there might be people listening back in the future. So if I say things that you know already, it's just in case, yeah, people don't know that yet. But yeah, so we're Snook. Sounds like everyone on the call probably know about us. So we're a design studio built to make the world more human. So we're based in London and in Glasgow, and we are working with local governments, UK and Scottish governments and healthcare providers to help them better understand the needs of people they serve and ensure that services are accessible and designed around user needs. We also did a lot of work and continue to do a lot of work with charities, community interest companies, and other organizations to create a more sustainable and fairer future for everyone. So our work is kind of broken down into 5 missions, which are shown here. And most recently, we've been really pushing, the Thriving Planet mission, and actually Lucy Stewart and Ness Wright and Zoe Poser, who are kind of the initiator of that mission area, have been working hard over the past 3 years to make it, a central part of our work, and it's really starting to kick off internally. So we had a kind of working group, which was kind of a community of practice initially, and now it's really becoming a practice and something that we want to work on with clients. So we both try and, make everything that we do sustainable, but also want to help through design make the sustainable thing the best thing. So helping organizations who have products or services or approaches, that help make people and planet thrive, really expand their impact by having more people adopt it and make it more widely implemented. So yeah, I've already covered what we're doing with Thriving Planet. But yeah, so through our work with Thriving Planet, we've had the chance to get involved in the Design for Planet Festival, which happened 2 weeks ago. It was in Dundee at the V&A, which is a beautiful building. I don't know if you've been able to go there, but it's probably one of the most beautiful museums I've seen, like over the river. It was just a perfect setting, to talk about these things. So what was the event? It was organized by Design Council in response to COP26, and it was aimed to galvanize the 1.69 million strong multidisciplinary community of designers to design with the long-term future of the planet at the heart of all we do. So there were around 120 delegates in person at the V&A, and around, I think there was 5,500 online attendees who joined as well. So over 2 days, so it was on the 9th and 10th of November, there were on the first day keynotes, panel discussions, and on the second day, more interactive workshops online, and a unconference happening in person, which Snook helped facilitate along with our founder and ex-CEO, Sarah Drummond. So an unconference is where like the script is kind of flipped and attendees craft the agenda for the day, focusing on topics that they want to discuss. So yeah, a lot happened. I think we still haven't really distilled everything, because yeah, it was a lot around big ideas, the big pictures, some practical things as well. I think a lot of the very practical hands-on discussion were happening in the workshops online as well, which we haven't been able to, attend. So yeah, what we're shared today is really, from our perspective. So we might not be able to cover everything that was discussed there. But the good thing is that most of the content is still on the designforplanet.org website. So you can, if you have time, take a look to watch some of the sessions. I think not all the recordings from workshops are there yet. Hopefully there will be soon. But yeah, so you can always view the details of things. So why this event? So not only because design is a powerful agent of change, but also because design shapes the world, you know, in a way it shapes everything around us, like our products, the places, our homes. And actually, when we think about it, most of the environmental impact of products and services originates at the design phase. So that's why, you know, designers across industries and disciplines, whether it's in the built environment, in product and industrial design, in communications, through advertising and media, or in service design, like us, all have a massive impact and influence on how people ultimately live their lives, work, or consume. So we really have to, and have the responsibility to change and adapt our approaches to take, you know, the actions that we need to take for the environment. So we thought we would share a couple of inspiring quotes from the talks or discussions that we heard. Hopefully you'll find them interesting. Obviously, sorry, moving my chair closer. Obviously, some things, you know, are probably things that you do already, especially in the charity sector, but it was kind of nice to, you know, hear the conversations around, you know, like social justice and climate kind of join up in a way. And, you know, to really talk about that in the context of design. So the themes of the event there were around 60 themes within which the different conversations fit. So resilient places, co-designing with communities, the circular economy, changing behaviors, a just transition, and designing with nature. And actually, I like to come back to these themes, and we'll probably continue to come back to them because they illustrate quite well like how we might be thinking moving forward. So on the first day, the first day was kicked off with a powerful address from the 17-year-old climate activist Anita Okunde. She said, you as a designer have a massive role to play, and we need you to make ethical and sustainable choices. We need actions, not empty words. So that was a really good reminder that we're really ripe for, you know, action, and we need to work together to figure out what to do. And Minimal, the CEO of the Design Council, also followed by saying, we have the most important design brief of our time to design a viable future for the human race. Following that, we had Indy Johar and Kate Raworth, who explored the big picture in their talk. So looking at the systemic change that we need within our structures, our economies, power, governance, and, you know, the ingrained mindsets within our society. And what really stuck with us, what Kate said around growth, and the fact that growth is not natural in the natural world, and that we should learn more about balance, you know, especially from other cultures like the Taoist Yin Yang, the Buddhist endless knot is still my homework of things to look into, and the Maori Takarangu to redress this obsession with growth. I'm really glad that she mentioned Maori because I'm actually from French Polynesia, which is a Maori, territory. And yes, I can confirm that there's a lot around like nature protection that comes from Maori culture that we should make sure to perpetuate and learn from. So speaking alongside Kate Raworth was Indy Johar of Dark Matter Labs, and he stressed how critical collaboration will be to tackling climate. He really urged us to share all of our intellectual property, because now is not the time for competition, and the fact that we need to relearn and recognize the importance of the commons. So both speakers talked about how open source and moving away from intellectual property should really help us to better work together and quicker. Hope this is not too, I'm aware that it's quite kind of big, you know, themes that are summarized in a few minutes, but hopefully it gives you a sense for the kind of inspirational things that were talked about on the first day. So around the themes of just transition, Paya Aurora, who's a digital anthropologist doing a lot of work around understanding how people around the world use digital technology, and especially in what people call the global south, highlighted that we need to make sure that digital inclusion and environmental sustainability are going together, even if there's a worry, Ellie's turning, even if there's a worry that, there's around the carbon footprint or the impact of digital, on the environment. Everyone should be able to have access to digital because it, opens doors to many things and to learning and to, evolving the economy. So yeah, we should make sure that the two work together. I also really found interesting the fact that she said ecology is the permanent economy, especially in cultures coming from poverty, and it's been common sense along the marginalized majority for a long time. She also said we should we should learn more around, from the culture coming from poverty, because it's a culture of repair, it's a culture of frugality, that, makes us optimize resources to the fullest because we respect the resources and they become an extension of ourselves. It's a culture of subsistence, and actually the mainstream agriculture economy around the world has been led by women. So it's also centering diversity as a way of sustainability. And it's also a culture of collectives. So it's decentering from the individual to put the common good at the center. So yeah, there's been a lot of things that's been, the typical way of doing things for decades that we just need to bring back in our kind of Western world and way of thinking. So then there was Aurelie Camargo, who's brought some really interesting principles for a just transition based on her expert knowledge in neuroscience and her indigenous culture. And she laid out that our entire relationship with the planet needs to change. We really need to end supremacy and create an equitable relationship with the land. So it starts by reframing our language from the I to the us, and from non-human things being them rather than it. So than things, which I thought was quite powerful as well. Again, on the theme of a just transition, so we did a workshop with Andy Hyde from Go Upstream, and we discussed that while there's been a lot of progress with accessibility and inclusion, many systems and services continue to exclude and disadvantage many people. So there's also many sustainable services that aren't inclusive, like recycling or electric cars. The charging posts actually block pavement, so people with wheelchairs can't pass them. So for Andy, designing for the planet really means designing so that everyone can take part in a low carbon future. And we need to broaden our conversation from decarbonizing, let's say, transport or services, to designing inclusive low carbon journeys that include low carbon, transport or technologies or things. Ooh, I think I need to speed up a bit. So there's also an interesting theme around a behavioral revolution and the importance of changing, how we behave, how we consume, and the fact that designers don't have enough conversations about the end of the consumer life cycle. We have a linear relationship with consumption. We're working on telling exciting stories about how and why people should buy things, but then on the other hand, a consumer ends up being quite worried about the waste that they've generated and start feeling guilt. But this is also pushing responsibility for managing the end of the service to another person who quite often might be quite vulnerable. So yeah, we need to think about that more. And this one was probably one of my favorite talks, or at least the one that I was able to hear. And it's really about the fact that we need to work hard for people to behave differently. And even though stories can be very effective, they often struggle to be heard and let alone and acted upon. And it was coming from Ursula de Castro, who started a fashion revolution and has been raising the issue of overconsumption in fashion for years and years, and used the story of mending her own garments and, keeping garments that she had for a long time, with each little damage that has a story. And finally, she managed to have an impact. So yeah, she highlighted the importance of stories, but the fact that they should make people feel more rather than thinking. Okay. So this is about changing behaviors again, and the role of design around visualizing or creating something that doesn't exist, and the fact that we need to create empathy for what it looks like or to experience the climate crisis, because it is happening. It might not be in front of us, but some people are already experiencing the impact of it. So it's hard, but we should be participating in bringing this evidence and what it feels like to live it. So I'm just aware of time. I might need to go through some of the slides quickly. So then co-design with community was a really interesting area, and probably very relevant for the Catalyst Network as well, who've been doing that for a long time. So it's really, highlighting the fact that there's energy all around us. We just need to get out of, rooms like our offices or these conference rooms and really go into the areas where we want to do work. And it's really about putting knowledge in the hands of people so that they can understand, what Amy calls, the dark matter, the dream matter, and the ordinary matter, which the dark matter is like how things work, money, governance. Dream matter is like enabling people to imagine, a better future, to dream as well. And the ordinary matter, which are, things that we have in our day-to-day but don't really acknowledge or take for granted, like a street light, for example. So she talks about how to bring, the dark matter and the ordinary, dream matter into the ordinary more. Right, so I'm going to skip to a couple of slides just because of the time. So then designing with nature was quite interesting as well, and something that I personally really want to learn more about. Oh, I just realized that we're missing 2 words. So Simon Jones from the Loch Lomond highlighted that we need to think about the relationship between climate and nature, because it's not just by solving or tackling the climate issue that will repair nature. So we really need to work actively to repair nature, because the climate and nature are completely different threads, even though they are very interconnected through natural and functional ecosystems like water and forest. And he also encouraged us to help people connect with nature and the value of nature more. Okay, that was it for the quotes from the talks. Just quickly giving you an overview of what happened on the second day. So there were around 12 workshops to learn about methods ranging from eco-conscious design, life cycle assessment, green and blue infrastructure, sustainable materials, even natural dyeing. And yeah, normally these should all be available to view on the website. And if not, you can always see the name of people who've done them. And then we also co-facilitated an on-conference with Sarah Drummond, where people, we had 12 different group discussions, and the attendees defined the topics that they want to cover. So we had 30 people coming in to pitch their topic at the stage. And it was up to us to do what we do as designers. So spotting patterns, clustering, and synthesizing these into 12. It was 10 topics, I think, in literally 5 minutes, which was quite interesting, but we did it. And yeah, you can view the notes from the discussions actually in this link here. bit.ly/DFP unconference. So I can't see the chat, so if anyone has any question, feel free to drop in, or if there's any issue.
Sorry, Aurelie, can I just come in? I'd love people to ask questions on the chat, do so, but I'd like you to come to that and have a discussion around that. I'm conscious you've had a lot of slides still in your presentation. Are you able to maybe skip a few? I want to make sure we have at least like 15-20 minutes for a conversation.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry to rush
So if I do another, we're finishing at 1:30. Oh. How much time do I have then?
Yeah, 1:30, but that's with conversation as well.
Yeah. Okay, so if I do another 5 minutes.
Right, thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Just reorganizing my screen. Okay, so I'll just keep the role of designers then, but I really recommend, because I think sorry, I can't open my notes again. The conference was the various discussions in the conference was really highlighted and kind of validated some of the roles and characteristics needed from designers, which was published, I think it was 3 months ago, in the Design Council Systemic Design Framework. So we need to be facilitating more. We need to have internal leaders who kind of connect and convene, sorry. We need people who design and make things so they're more tangible, and we need people to think systemically as well, and we need leaders and storytellers to get people on board. And in our ways of working, the double diamond, which you may know about, so divergent thinking to understand the problem and convergent to like define the most appropriate solution, is still very relevant, but we also need to be able to kind of zoom out and see the bigger picture, as well as zooming in on what we do, and also disrupting systems. And finally, resourcing invisible activity is definitely something that we've experienced as Snook, is these moments like this where we're able to share things, to talk about challenges, to just come together, which might be seen as invisible or like not priority activity, are as important as the work and the project that we work on. So just to wrap up quickly, here's a couple of ideas for how to put this into practice. So share learnings and collaborating, and actually the Catalyst service recipes for charities are an amazing example of doing that. So making sure that we do things like that. So joining a community of practice, talking to other people who are facing, similar challenges, who want to, include the environment more in their work, but, are still figuring it out is amazing. And making commitments as well, and defining our standards. So there were a lot of discussions around how might we have our Hippocratic oath, like new doctors who recently graduate commit to doing no harm, or things that they will never do, and things like that. So what could it look like for us in service design, digital design, and how can we set our own standards and commit to them? And then defining what good design looks like. So there was a really good example from Network Rail, who worked with the Design Council to put together good design guides. So it's not only principles, but it's actually quite detailed, but it's very simple to digest guidance about what accessible and sustainable railway station would look like, for example. And it's guidance that they use for like competition and call for projects, and which the various different stakeholders that they work with can use. So yeah, it's moving from standards to practice, and also designing for future generations, and keeping future generations in our stakeholder maps, for example, as a provocation, could be a really good way to make sure that we think about the future, because we all have maybe children or children around us whom we care about. So yeah, it's a powerful way to do that. Broaden the conversation, bring in different perspectives, try to understand why other people aren't interested in climate, why they disagree with you. Bring in marginalized voices, For example, the Scottish government at the moment is doing some work around understanding how the single-use plastic ban is going to impact different groups of people and people with access needs. So yeah, also keeping in mind that some things that we think will be sustainable and working for everyone might not work for everyone. Reduce, reuse, recycle, and this applies not only to things, but to our work, and it applies to knowledge, resources. So sharing things with others to avoid recreating every time, discarding data or things that you don't need and only keep the ones that people can benefit from and build on. And learning from ancient wisdom, again, was there's recognizing that learning takes time, and especially learning for deep change and systemic change that we need at the moment. But there's actually so much wisdom that's been developed over centuries around how to protect nature, how to farm sustainably. So how can we get more inspiration from these, and also focus on these low-tech wisdom rather than focusing on technology as the only solution. And yeah, starting with your neighborhood, so where you live, because the crisis can be so overwhelming that it can become paralyzing at times. So if we start by what's happening around us, we can start making more tangible an experiment before making bigger initiatives. Keep learning and building your toolkit. So that's something that I've been doing personally over the years. This is a screenshot of my Trello online toolkit. So whenever I come across something, a resource or something I find interesting, I try and capture it there, and I keep on going back to it. Okay, I'm almost done. So yeah, if you're interested in learning more, it's around the work that Snook is doing, where we've been actually developing some planet-centered design training, and we've delivered that with DEFRA, and we're aiming to have more specific modules, but also like one training program which will be open to the public around making sense of planet-centered design. So yeah, and it will be around these different topics and perhaps others. We're also planning to do a DOTI event about nature and climate sometime next year. So watch this space. And actually, to build on my own toolkit, I'm planning to launch this thing called Design for Life Toolkit, which will basically be an open source toolkit website, starting with the toolkit that I've been building over the years, but hoping to open it up for more people to contribute. And these are some examples of my favorite resources that are there at the moment. So I'm happy to share links later. So yeah, that's me, that's us. Feel free to get in touch and tag us if you found anything interesting or want to continue the conversation afterwards. And thank you so much again, Debbie and Ellie, for inviting us to come in. Hopefully it was insightful for you all. It's cramming a lot in 20 minutes, but yeah, hopefully it sparks some interesting conversation as well.
Thank you so much. I did set you an almost impossible task, right? Like capturing 2 intensive days in 20 minutes. But thank you so much for sharing some of that. And
synthesizing is among the things I'm improving at the moment.
No, I really appreciate that. There was a stop tour, and oh my God, there's so much happening on the chat, which is lovely. And I just want to, Melissa might have answered your question, Kyle, but did you want to ask it here so we can respond to, you were wondering if there's more, I'll let you ask it actually. And Aurelie, you're welcome to stop sharing.